Scottish Cup Final, Celtic versus Dunfermline.
There we go, a very good afternoon to you, and Celtic has completed the double this afternoon. Final score from a sunny Hampden Park, you would have to say. Celtic 3, Dunfermline 1, joined by Ethan to look back on the 90 minutes of the game. And before I say, Ethan, are you happy? I think you got your predictions right in the show yesterday, because I think you said 3-1. I said 3-0, but nevertheless.
I think I might have said 3-0 as well, or maybe I did say 3-1. I'm not sure. I can't really remember, but no, the Celtic won and won by probably a comfortable margin, if we're being fair to Dunfermline, and it was deserved because Celtic completely dominated that first half and got 2 goals to show for it. Dyson Maeda pounces on it. It's a decent ball over the top from Alistair Johnston. Poor defending from Todd, I think it was, who missed the flight of the ball, and then it's a nice finish from Maeda to continue his excellent run of form to what you'd imagine to be his last Celtic game. I think Celtic fans had a banner saying Arigato Dyson after the match. So yes, and then for the second goal, Arne Engels, it's a good strike, but I do think Aston Oxborough maybe should have done a little bit better with it. I know he was blindsided by his defenders probably, but I think he should have at least tried to save it. But I think that just summed up Dunfermline's first half. They just weren't really good. They didn't get near to Celtic at all, and I think Neil Lennon will be really frustrated with that. We spoke about it yesterday, and I said that Dunfermline would have wanted to play this match without any regrets, and I think, unfortunately for the Pars, they will come away from this match with regrets of how they played in that first half. Neil Lennon obviously makes the couple of changes at half time, and they go for it, and then they get that. They get the few chances and generate a little bit of pressure on the Celtic goal, and it was a little bit maybe reminiscent of the semi-final for Celtic when they go 2-0 up at half-time, and then St Mirren obviously find a way back into the game, except this time Dunfermline didn't get the goal, and then Celtic did. Kelechi actually did have the ball in the net. Initially, that was offside, but then he scored a perfectly fair goal and a very composed one by that. An excellent end to, if it's going to be the end of his Celtic career, but I do feel like Celtic may offer him another deal, because I think I like a lot of the players that maybe deserve one, because I think he's been excellent and showed up in some big games. And then Dunfermline do get the consolation at the end. Cooper, I think it was, off the bench, who finished at the back post, but Celtic obviously win as we expected and as we predicted, to win the 43rd Scottish Cup, 7 of the last 10, I believe, and I don't really know how this Celtic team has won a double, but congratulations to them, and the players, and Martin O'Neill especially deserve enormous credit for doing so, because a lot of people wrote them off from earlier points in the season, and even recently, a few weeks ago, people were saying that this Celtic team couldn't win the league, and look, now they have, and they've got a Scottish Cup to go with it as well. And when Martin O'Neill first joined the Celtic Football Club almost 30 years ago, or however long it might have been, a double was an excellent achievement for any club in Scottish football, and now it becomes a little bit of the norm at Celtic, and now they're looking at, well, Celtic could have won the treble this season if it wasn't for Wilfred Nancy stepping in for Martin O'Neill for that brief period. So yeah, obviously an excellent season on the face of the trophy count, and sometimes that's all that matters. You look back at the 25-26 season and you see Celtic have won 2 trophies. It's an excellent season on that outlook, but I think Celtic should know that they need to improve in the summer in a lot of departments to keep on top of Scottish football, as we touched on last night. So yeah, big win for Celtic, but I think a good day for them, and an opportunity to really celebrate what Martin O'Neill's done, and for the players to celebrate properly, because I imagine they probably, if they were being professional, they would have kept the celebrations a little bit more sensible after the League One, because obviously they had this game to play, and they carried it out pretty professionally and deserved the win in the end.
And I thought as well, all 4 goals today was quality goals, Ethan, as well. It's a bit unusual that you see that in a no no just a league game, but a cup final as well. Like but yeah, I mean Dunfermline had their chance, real chance at the beginning of the game. I think it was a mix-up between Arsky Johnson and Sinasaro. And when you saw the replay, for me, I don't know about you, but Sinasaro should have got it there earlier as well. And I think it was Scales that cleared over the line. And I think that was the only real note that I took from confirming, apart from obviously the goal in the second half.
Yeah, in the first half there wasn't really much going for the Pars, and just off the ball they just didn't carry that intensity that I think we've seen from them in the previous games. And there's some instances where they're just giving Callum McGregor too much time, and Neil Lennon, obviously previous manager of the Celtic captain, will know how much that you just can't do that, and that is where Celtic are threatened, and I think play some of their worst football is when Callum McGregor is isolated and picked out as by the opposition as someone to try and keep quiet. But there was just so many times he was picking the ball up in so much space. You think about the second goal, he's unmarked, and then he just lays it off to Engels, who has a strike under no pressure from 20-25 yards out, and you just can't afford good players like the Celtic ones that amount of time. And I think that's where Celtic have been unravelled at points this season, is the pressure that opposition teams have put them under, but Dunfermline just didn't put them under any pressure in that first half, apart from that chance that you referenced to. I think it was, I'm pretty sure it was Callum Morrison that got on the end of it, that put the pressure on Alistair Johnston. And yeah, as you said, a bit of a miscommunication between the fullback and the goalkeeper, Vojami Sinisalo, and I think one of them should have took charge of the situation. I actually thought that Alistair Johnson should have done something with it, but fortunately for Celtic, it didn't end up to anything, because Liam Scales was on alert to clear it off the line. But yeah, apart from that, Dunfermline didn't look like threatening at all, and it was a very one-sided first half in which I think Celtic had over 80% of the ball. So yeah, that says enough, and I think Celtic could have scored a few more. In the second half, credit to Dunfermline, they did look a lot better, especially at the start of it. The 3 changes, obviously it's bold to make 3 changes at half time from Neil Lennon, but I think it's something they had to do, because they weren't in the game at all, and at least it gave them something. And I think if they take one of those chances at the start of the second half, then it's possibly a different game. But they didn't. Celtic seen through the pressure and then took their chances when they came themselves to get the third and kill off the game ultimately.
Yeah, no, I know. I think we'll come back to talk about Martin O'Neill, because he hadn't denied that he will be here next season. I don't know if you saw that interview before we came on as well, but I think that's Guyton Maida's last ever game for Celtic, because you saw the famous wave that players give to the fans after the game. But he's been magnificent for Celtic, and also he got the kind of party scattered for Celtic with that goal to the chipping Oxford to put Celtic 1-0 up.
Yeah, he's been excellent. What was that? He scored in now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 consecutive matches, which is a ridiculous run. I believe that would be 9 goals in those 7 games. The 2 against Rangers and the 2 against Falkirk. A couple of assists in there for such a crucial point in the season to score so many big goals. And ultimately, he was I think the difference. If Celtic didn't have Guyton Maida in the final sort of sprint of the Premiership season, I don't think they win the league. You could maybe make the case that they still would have won the Scottish Cup final today against Dunfermline, but you think of the contribution he made in the semi-final. He gets the opening goal after in the early stages pressuring the goalkeeper in a situation where I don't think you get any other player in Scottish football able to pressure the goalkeeper like that. And he's just such a threat. They nearly created an opportunity for Kelechi Iheanacho right at the end, where he won the ball back off Dunfermline, intercepted a pass and then played Ian actual through, he just wasn't quick enough to stay in front of the Dunfermline defenders. And yeah, he's been an absolute revelation for the Celtic cause this season. And I think the perfect send off for him and the football club to remind, I think, everybody of how good a football player he actually is when his mindset is sort of focused on the football aspect. And I think he addressed that he didn't know what was sort of going on for him mentally early in the season, and that's maybe why the performances weren't as good as what we've seen in recent weeks. And I think Celtic still have the opportunity to probably make quite a lot of money off him when they do sell him. I'd imagine after the World Cup, because you would imagine he's got to be selected, and will certainly play a part for Shinsuke Nakamura now, the Japan manager, I believe, which is a bit of a strange one, considering the last boss hadn't done too poorly. So there's another Celtic connection, and I'm sure Nakamura will want to do his old club a turn as well, by trying to maximise the value for Maeda. But 1 year left on his contract, so obviously that will come into discussion, but I think he will attract interest from clubs across some of Europe's top leagues, whether that's the English Premier League, like I believe Daizen Maeda is preferred destination. We'll see, but he's a top player, and I think he could certainly go to the next level in sort of latter stages of his career. Not saying he's too old yet, but the time for making one of those moves is running out, and you can understand that at this stage and what he's achieved at Celtic, why he might want to go to the next level.
And then Andy Ingles scored the second goal. What a strike. Even but when I was watching the game, I did not think that for 1 second that I was going to shoot. Maybe he thought the same, but it was some goal to make it 2-0.
Yeah, and I think he's always threatened to do stuff like that. You can see that he's a great striker of the ball, and I think plenty of times this season he's stung the gloves of the opposition goalkeeper. But this time he gets it in, and it's a great strike, great power on it, and maybe not the perfect placement, but I think it's just the way that it sort of curls round the defender, or it's sort of the shot's blinded Oxborough's view of it means that he can't really get there. I do think the Motherwell loanee probably should have done better in goals, but take nothing away from Engels, it's a good strike, and I think something he should, if he is going to be at Celtic or wherever he might go next season, obviously was linked with big money moves away in January, that he should add to his game. And I think he said as much, speaking to the BBC after the game, that he thinks he should score more goals. And I think that was him. He said that after his first season as well. Obviously, pretty reliable from the penalty spot as he scored that massive goal last weekend. But open play goals is something that he could add to his game, certainly.
And then obviously Dunfermline scored the goal through Cooper in the 80 minutes, and you thought, could they? But obviously Celtic made the subs in the natural come on, and I think he deserved the goal to get even, because I think he's one player that played the part in Celtic winning the league.
Yeah, he scored some massive goals and massive pressure situations. You think of the penalty at Fir Park, penalty or no penalty, he still had to step up and convert it, and he did so. Same at Rugby Park earlier in the season. Dens Park, he scored the winning goal, I believe. Yes, he did. Easter Road, he scored a winning goal as well.
You not score at Rugby Park as well? Oh, you said that, yeah? Yeah,
I said Rugby Park, yeah. So yeah, he scored some massive goals for winning goals as well for Celtic, and this one maybe less so. But ultimately, if it was 2-0 and Josh Cooper gets that one back to bring it back to 2-1 instead of 3-1 late on, and maybe it is a different story. So still a big goal, and he has I believe it's 0.9 something goals per 90 minutes, which is an excellent return for any striker. Never mind one that's been brought in a free agent basis, that a lot of people wondered whether he was ever going to be fit enough to play for Celtic again. And you see the quality in him. It's just whether he's got that sort of fitness, he can get to those fitness levels to contribute on a more regular basis. But I think as an option off the bench, he's certainly someone you would want to have around, because he was obviously very talented earlier in his career, and he's still got that talent. It's just sort of the fitness side of it, as I mentioned. But yeah, excellently taken goal. Good ball from Benjamin Negrin, and then he does the rest. I think it actually probably could have been a penalty as well, possibly. It was young Jeremiah Chilico Mullen that sort of slid down and handled the ball, but Ian Atchell continued, dribbled round a couple of players, including the goalkeeper, and then finished it off well to seal the cup for Celtic.
I think we'll come back to Celtic in a minute, right? But we need to talk about Dunfermline, and obviously, like the supporters in Neil Lennon will be a bit disappointed how they lost the game to you, and certainly the performance of large parts of the game. But I think like they can be proud of what they achieved this season, but beating Aberdeen, Hibs, Falkirk, getting to the final, missing out in the final of the Premiership playoff, like Thistle beat them. But it's like, well, that was an okay season for the Park, but like, what can you do in that season? Can you come up in that season?
Yeah, that's it. And the players need to take a lot of confidence from it and inspiration in themselves that they are capable of beating Premiership teams, as we've seen this season. And if they can consistently beat or be more consistent in beating Championship teams next season, then they will have a chance of getting promoted. There's no getting away from that. They've got an excellent manager who's got experience at multiple levels and multiple clubs across Scotland, and a guy who knows how to install a sort of winning formula at a football club like his opposite number today in Martin O'Neill. And I think Dunfermline will have a real chance next season, but they do need to be more consistent in the league because they are capable of beating any team in that Championship. It's just doing it on a more regular basis, because looking at the league table, I know they knocked them out of the playoffs, but Arbroath finished above them, and you could say Arbroath are more short of resources than the team from East End Park. So yeah, I think ultimately not a lot to show for it in terms of trophies or progress, but I think what it does show to the Dunfermline fans and sort of the outside looking in, people like ourselves, that they are an ambitious club that do have players that have got the talent to take them to the Premiership next season. So yeah, I think that'll be the aspirations for Neil Lennon if he is still in charge there. I think I mentioned it yesterday that at the time when St Mirren were going to look for another manager, there obviously was those links to the former Celtic and Hibs boss. So yeah, an interesting one, but no, an excellent run for Dunfermline as a Championship side. And they knew that the odds were always going to be stacked against them today, but that's what football is about, and an excellent turnout from the supporters as well. Give them credit. They went and supported their team, and it probably was a difficult afternoon. They didn't have much to shout about, especially in that first half, but that's where I feel like the players might leave the pitch with a little bit of regret as to how they played in that opening 45 minutes, because I think the game was gone at half time, and that's something that Neil Lennon would have sort of said to the players, that try and get to half time and still be in the game, or try and get to 60 minutes, still be in the game, stuff like that. But they just never really were in the game at all, apart from that Morrison chance that we referenced to. So yeah, they'll be disappointed with that, but that doesn't mean you take anything away from their journey to get to the final, knocking out 3 Premiership clubs, and including their rivals in a semi-final occasion at Hampden. So an excellent cup run for Dunfermline, and all credit to them and all good luck to them for next season, because as we said, you like to see the big clubs getting that rewarding story for the supporters that are loyal to the football club, and getting up to the Premiership would be a massive achievement and massive story for one of Scotland's biggest clubs.
Obviously, we'll talk about Martin O'Neill in a wee bit while we go. Let's talk about Neil Lennon. Do you think he'll be hungry to stay for more next season? But because he nearly got the final, beating the Scottish Cup final, had an excellent season. So do you think he'll hang about next season?
I think he will. I think unless an opportunity comes along that he thinks is a better one to maximise the players at his disposal, then I think he will stay at Dunfermline, because I think that, as I just spoke about, there is potential in that squad to get them to be a championship champion, so to say, or a championship team that's going to get up through the playoffs. They weren't far off against Partick Thistle, and you've got to remember as well that although I criticise Aston Oxborough for for the second goal and think he maybe should have done a little bit better. If Jens Berflascu hadn't recalled him to Motherwell's squad and he obviously missed one of the playoff games against Partick Thistle, and I can't remember the young goalkeeper's name who came in as the sort of sub then and makes the errors, you could say, for the Partick Thistle goals, and maybe we're looking at Dunfermline playing St Mirren. It's fine margins, and that ultimately that goalkeeping recall might have hampered. Well, I think it probably did hamper Dunfermline's chances of progressing. Taking nothing away from Mark Wilson and his Partick Thistle team, but it is the finest of margins in football sometimes, and I think Dunfermline can be really confident about going into next season, because you look at where Neil Lennon picked them up from, lower side of the Championship, possibly outside contenders of relegation last season, and now well in with, you would say, the upper quality teams in that league. And I think probably a lot of people will tip them to be in the playoffs at least again next season.
Let's have a look at your comments then. Eddie Watson on YouTube said for that, I think he's a Celtic fan. He's Glasgow Celtic champions as well. Perry basically is Watson on YouTube. He said that they came out and had a good goal in the second half. I think we spoke about that early on, and I think that was mainly down to Neil Lennon changing the subs as well. Making the subs. Final comment, Eddie, again, they ran as absolute mad in the second half. I think that's down to Neil Lennon making the subs, but also as well as I've always said in the show that this season, even, and I might say it during the World Cup, you never know, but I do think like 2-0's a kind of like funny score to go in at half time, because obviously it only takes the opposition to come out and score a quick goal and the game's back on 2-1.
Yeah, and that's that. And football's a funny game that you can dominate possession and all the chances for 45 minutes, but it ultimately only takes the other team a minute to generate two chances, which they could score from both of them, and then they're back in the game. And you've seen that in back-to-back games for Celtic at a crucial point in the season. St Mirren, the semi-final, they lead 2-0 at half-time. Mikael Mandron and St Mirren, an excellent comeback to force extra time. Ultimately, of course, they fade away in that 6 minutes where Celtic get the 4 goals at the start of extra time, but that could have been another game completely. And then I think it was the following game where they faced Falkirk in the first game of the split at Celtic Park, and they were 2-0 up at half-time again, and then Falkirk got that goal back to make it 2-1, and it was a little bit of a nervy end. I think Celtic did go on to get the third goal and won 3-1 in the end, but it is a dangerous scoreline, as you said, and despite all of Celtic's dominance in the first half, if Dunfermline were to get that early goal, which maybe that you could say they deserved based off the chances and putting Sinisalo under a little bit of pressure, then it would have got their fans right up for it and the Celtic crowd nervous, and then it's a different game entirely. But it obviously didn't come for them. It just wasn't their day in that aspect, and then Celtic get the third, and it is lights out for them. So yeah, credit to Dunfermline for and Neil Lennon for showing the resilience and the bravery to go for it in the second half, because making attacking changes like the ones he did, 3 of them, I know some of them are like for like, but bringing sort of defenders off and bringing more attacking players on is obviously a bold move, especially when you're a Championship club against the team with probably some would say the highest value squad and biggest wage budget squad in the entire country. That sometimes when you do that, it goes on 6s and 7s for the other team, that Celtic could have completely ran away with the match, but it didn't go like that, and Dunfermline really put up a fight, and as I said, on another day they get a goal back, and maybe it is a different story, but credit to Celtic, they weathered the storm and got the goal they needed in the second half to wrap up the game.
It's a fun little game, isn't it, Ethan, because obviously we spoke about Celtic basically obviously winning the game 3-1 in the end. Dunfermline came into it in the second half, but I didn't think that would reflect on the Matt statistics, because if you look at them, Ethan, Celtic had 8 shots confirmed, had 9 on target. Celtic had 5 to Dunfermline's 3. And if you're into your corner kick stats, I don't know why you would be, but Celtic had 3, Dunfermline 2. So when you look at them in isolation, right, you would think it would be a tighter game than it was.
Yeah, and that's that. And I think it's maybe sort of warped our perception of what a dominant Celtic display actually is, because you think that first half was dominant, but under previous Celtic teams a lot better in recent years, your Ange Postecoglou's, some of your Brendan Rodgers performances in both spells, Celtic absolutely pepper the opposition's goal, and sometimes they'll have up to 20 shots in a half, and I think that was just one of the best performances in a part of a game we've seen from Celtic this season. But compared to stacking up against recent Celtic sides, it just doesn't compare, and I think that's where this Celtic squad is due so much credit, and that yes, they lack the quality at large parts of times, and we all recognise that, but they've got the resilience to keep going and keep getting the results. And ultimately, across the course of a season, it doesn't really matter if you were to win every game 4-0 or win every game 1-0. It doesn't matter. You're still going to win the trophy at the end of the day. So, yeah, credit to them. And, yeah, I think, as you said, the stats make it out as a lot closer game than what it probably was. But that maybe just shows how much threat Dunfermline actually did carry in that sort of period to start the second half, and why maybe, yeah, they were unfortunate not to get a goal then, and obviously they did get one in a moment to celebrate in the end, but ultimately just a consolation at that point in the game.
And we mentioned this earlier on at the top of the show. Scales cleared the ball off the line. I don't know what you think, but I thought that was one of Scales' better games today.
Yeah, I think Liam Scales is someone who I think goes under the radar. Maybe not goes under the radar because he gets a lot of criticism, but I think Liam Scales is a solid defender, and he's maybe not the best central defender Celtic have ever had. I'm not saying that, but in terms of what this Celtic team need in possession, he carries the ball forward. He's not afraid to bring it forward. He's not afraid to look for a forward pass. He can pick out a forward pass. We've seen him do that multiple times this season against Rangers. He plays the lovely ball over the top to Kieran Tierney for the second goal. And in terms of defensively as well, I think he's a really alert defender. He's not scared to sort of make a slide tackle or make a block. And I think there has always been debates, because I think that they've got different strengths in different areas. But if you had to pick one sort of centre back to go alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers, based off recent performances, I would say Liam Scales has been better than Austin Trusty. I think Austin Trusty does carry things that he's better at than Liam Scales. I think he's faster than Scales, and I think he sort of maybe at some points his physicality is a little bit better than Scales. But then again, there has been times where Trusty's really struggled to deal with the physical battles of the opposition. But I think sort of on the ball, and Celtic are on the ball an awful lot. You've seen it today, 80% of the possession. So the Celtic centre backs need to be good at being on the ball, and I think that's why Scales has lasted so long at Celtic, because on top of that, I think he's a decent defender on his day. Not saying he's the next coming of Maldini or anything, but he's a solid player, and I think you can see why Celtic managers have stuck by him over the years.
I think as well that a lot of Scotland fans would be worrying when they saw Tierney going down in the second half. He played on, and then I think he came off with like 10 minutes to go in the game. But I'm sure Martin and Neil will give us an update on how Tierney is, because I would imagine that he will get a few games off. I don't know if he'll get any minutes next week in the game next Saturday, because I think Scotland's got a game when they actually go out to America before the World Cup starts. So I'll be interested to see what Neil says about Tierney.
Yeah, it will be. Although I do think that it's probably just sort of cramp and tiredness of the legs. I think we've seen that a lot with Kieran Tierney this season, and a lot of credit goes to him, because I imagine he's playing through a lot of pain and a lot of sort of the latter stages of games, and I think he's still obviously struggling to overcome the fitness problems he's had throughout his career, and credit to him for how many games he's played this season, because a lot of people wrote him off to be injured, and Celtic not being able to rely on him as a available option all the time. And of course he has had injuries throughout the season, but I think he's had one of his most injury-free seasons ever, and that's a lot of credit to him, because a lot of people wrote him off, and he's proved a lot of people wrong. And I think he's been one of Celtic's most consistent performers across the season. And certainly, I've made my point on this, or my opinion on this, very clear before, that I think in international football it's sometimes about just getting the best players you can on the pitch, and I think Steve Clarke should find a way to try and get him in the starting 11 for Scotland. Not for that game on Saturday. I think he probably does deserve a rest after what the shift he's put in this season. But I think in that friendly you referenced to in the States, when it comes, I can't remember who it's against. I believe it's a South American team. I'm going to check right now for clarification. But I think starting him left centre back and a back four, or even a back five, I think if Scotland are to play a back five at the World Cup, then he will play. But I think he should maybe have a chance even if they play a back four with the centre backs we've got at our disposal. I think Scott McKenna should be another option that I would consider. But then again, that's the case of playing two left-footed centre backs. But you've seen Celtic do it, and it's the same as playing two right-footed centre backs effectively. So I don't think that should get in the way of Steve Clarke's plans. But I don't think Steve Clarke's going to do that. I think he'll play one left-footed centre back that's not Kieran Tierney, and one right-footed centre back. So we'll see when those friendlies come. So obviously, it's Curaçao at Hampden a week today at 1 o'clock, and then the following Saturday at 9 o'clock. It is at the Sports Illustrated Stadium in Harrison, New Jersey, United States. Scotland will play Bolivia, who are 76th ranked in the world. So that'll be a decent test for Scotland, I suppose. So yeah, there we go. That's that friendly that they'll play in the last one before they obviously face Haiti and Boston.
Obviously we were talking about the Celtic team there. Like, I've been very impressed by Dunfermline. Neil Lennon's make a good team, because obviously when they came in, I think they were mid-bottom. Am I right? And obviously then the Scottish Cup final got beat today and in the playoff semi-final. But I also like that boy Matthew Todd. But I think I don't know if it's his brother that plays for Dunfermline as well at the back. Is it Jason Todd?
John Todd is the one, the central defender who's 19, and then the Todd you were speaking about as that is Andy Todd, yes. But then there's also, they're the brothers.
There's another Todd.
Yeah. Then there's Matty Todd, who's not a brother, who's two Ds instead of one. So yeah, a bit of a confusing one there. But Andy Todd's had an excellent season. Still only 20, 16 goals, 4 assists this season. And yeah, he's absolutely had an excellent season, and one that his previous goal tallies wouldn't really have seen coming. I believe he scored 1 goal in senior football before this season. To score 16 in a campaign's excellent, and I think you can probably say that since picking him up, and I don't think it was actually Neil Lennon. I think Neil Lennon joined after he was already signed, but what Neil Lennon's done for the development of his career, and he hooked his brother at half time, which maybe not the best for the family morale or whatever, but they'll, I think, be back next season, unless there's other clubs maybe in the Championship that are looking to sign them. But as I said, I think Dunfermline are one of the biggest clubs and one of the clubs with the biggest aspirations for next season. So unless it's a Premiership club or maybe someone down south, I think it probably likely is that they're at the heart of another Dunfermline. Well, maybe not a title charge this season, but certainly a promotion charge.
I think as well when we talk about the cup finals and all that, we're hoping that VAR doesn't get involved in the game. But I thought VAR made all calls right together. And I actually thought Stephen McLean had a decent game today.
Yeah, I think he did, and I think it's been a really disappointing end to the season for the referees because they've got massive criticism for the decisions made, and that's always going to be sort of part and parcel that comes with the mistakes that are made. But yeah, I think you've also got to credit them when they have good games, and I think a lot of people gave Don Robertson the credit last week for the job he done in the Celtic Hearts game, and of a game such high magnitude. I couldn't even think of one error that he made throughout the game, and so credit again to Stephen McLean because he was ultimately the one who made the error at Fir Park when he didn't give Alexandros Kazridis and Hearts that penalty after what looked to be a foul by Tawanda Maswanisi after being referred to the monitor. He decided to stick with his original decision, and that got a lot of backlash. Of course, not as much as the other decision at Fir Park later on in the season, but nonetheless, it's good to see that our referees are out there and bouncing back because ultimately you can complain about them all you like and criticise them all you like, but they're the best we've got and that we need them to play our football. And I think a lot of people have spoken about this recently, but it doesn't feel like we're maybe too far away from a refereeing strike and then we would have a real problem in Scotland.
There we go. Good evening to Gary. He says champions make mine a double as well. Ethan, I just saw Martin O'Neill's quotes from the press conference. Not today, obviously, because I haven't got them yet. But apparently, he was quoted in the Today's Sun saying that Celtic manager Martin O'Neill says Japanese forward Daiden Maeda is likely to play last game today for the club. But this is quite interesting, even because it says O'Neill believes Maeda has earned a chance to play in the English Premiership. Now, I don't know if that's Martin O'Neill saying that or else an English Premiership club is looking at him. So it's a bit like what's his face.
Yeah, as and I've seen a lot of people sort of analysing those quotes and saying that it sounds like it's Martin O'Neill speaking from someone that's going to be managing the Celtic team next season, and the players and the Martin O'Neill included have all a little bit hush after the game, not giving too much away, keeping their cards close to their chest.
I think, sorry, I can't cross you, but I think we said that yesterday, Ethan, because was it me or you making the point about like saying, well, how's all the signings getting made, like Scales and all that, and there's no manager there, so it might be Martin O'Neill kind of like in the background.
Yeah, no, I think Alistair Johnston said after the game that Martin O'Neill deserves an opportunity to go away and think about it for a few weeks. But I think the players know, and I think he knows himself whether he will be in the dugout next season. And I am going to speculate at this point that I think he will. I think Martin O'Neill will be the Celtic manager next season. I do. And obviously it's not going to be a long-term project. I don't think you can expect that to be his age, and age is the only thing that comes into it as to why it's not, because he still certainly has the enthusiasm, the energy, the passion, and the sort of grinding results out of that group of players to be an elite manager. But it's just do Celtic want to go down that route again of sort of writing off a season of getting a manager in for the future of the football club? But at the moment, looking at the options, I've said this yesterday, looking at the options that Celtic have been linked with and rumoured with, I think he might be the best candidate certainly for the season coming, and then you can reevaluate next summer. But then again, Celtic have known this is going to be coming for months since they appointed Martin O'Neill the second time this season. they've known that he maybe wasn't going to take the job next season, and but so you would make the case that they should have a known replacement that they are ready to come in. But I think we've seen in the past that sometimes Celtic don't work like that. And credit to Martin O'Neill and what he's done. I don't think we can. I know we've kept harping on about it, but I don't know if you can really give the man enough credit for the job he's done, and an excellent season for him, and an excellent maybe end to his career, or certainly close to the end of his managerial career, if it is to be. But yeah, with how everything's going, with the contract extensions, as you pointed out, it does feel like Martin O'Neill is going to be here next season.
I think of all the rumour speculation and all that, one thing that would go in Martin O'Neill's favour is he's more experienced than all these managers maybe kind of like put together. But I think I have a sneaky feeling that he'll stay now, and it wasn't because of what happened today, because they won the Scottish Cup. I think last week against Hearts and the way they won it, I think we would be talking about Martin O'Neill not staying if Celtic failed to win the league but win the Scottish Cup. Would that be a fair comment?
But sorry, I didn't really. I missed that. Do you say that we wouldn't be talking about it if he had just won the Scottish Cup and not the league?
No. What I'm saying is we wouldn't be talking about this if he only purely won the Scottish Cup and not the league.
I completely agree with that. I think that the fact that he's won the league and he's won all the trophies available to him, and he has a 100% record in the cups this season, because he wasn't the one who lost the League Cup final, and he has a ridiculous record in the league this season for win percentage and stuff like that. So in terms of the games that he's managed this season, and you can say what you want about the football, and everybody can see it's not as good as previous Celtic teams, but in terms of win percentage and all those sort of metrics, he's right up there with your Brendan Rodgers and your Ange Postecoglou. So in terms of looking at it on a sort of stats basis and stuff like that, he's been one of the best managers Celtic have had in recent years. So you would think that he does deserve the opportunity based on that. But if you sort of put more context to it and look into how Celtic have performed across the season, you could make the case that the performances weren't good enough under Martin O'Neill or something like that. But then again, they've not been good enough for the entire season under 3 different managers. So I don't know if Martin O'Neill's really the problem to that. And if you give him a full pre-season, allow him to bring in players, or allow him to help bring in players, because I don't believe that Celtic are going to give him the sort of reins to go and bring in whoever he wants. And that's maybe the stumbling block of this whole thing, that are Celtic going to invest in a lot of players for a manager that might only be there for a season, and then you've got someone else coming in that does want to play a completely different style? Because we've seen that with Wilfred Nancy, that some managers will come in and that's their only way of playing, that they're stubborn and they're not going to change from that. You've seen how it worked under Ange Postecoglou. He obviously got a summer transfer window to bring in his players. Wilfred Nancy nearly got to a January window to bring in his players, didn't quite make it for the full effect of that. So yeah, it's really interesting to see what Celtic are going to do, and I think it could have massive implications for how successful it will have massive implications for how successful they are next season, because it feels like we always say it for Rangers, but I think you've got to say it that Rangers will get better and they will sort of go again next season, and same for Hearts, because they're two clubs that are different now, you would say, with the modern ownership models, and are going to be ambitious and they are going to challenge Celtic. But yeah, again, no matter how poor Celtic you can say have been at points this season, no matter how poor you can say the squad is compared to previous years, they've walked away with a double. And as I started the show by saying, when Martin O'Neill first joined the club, that would have been an excellent season, regardless of what the performances were like throughout it.
I think as well that even though the Hearts fans would still be a bit annoyed how they lost the league in the last game of the season, and Rangers has got a massive rebuilding job. How many times have we said that in season going by? But even though Celtic, it's not bad for a Celtic, point of view, because obviously it's been a poor season, but they still win the double. And Hearts fans will be saying, well, we lost a game in the last day, but Celtic's only going to get better in that season. I think that would it be fair for me to say, Ethan, that like even though Hearts did well this season and they were 90 minutes away from winning, they get Parkhead and all the rest of it. But I think next year would be a good kind of marker to see was Hearts serious about that, or was it just a kind of like one season wonder?
Yeah, I think it will be. That's what it's going to be all about, because this is what football's about. You think you've got somebody that at another team that's going to disrupt domination in a division, and you've seen it and across other leagues as well. You think there's going to be a team that's going to join the sort of course, which is a sort of duopoly in this country of Celtic and Rangers, and then they fade away. I think Hearts will be serious next season. I don't know if they'll get as close as they were this season, but Tony Bloom said it's a 10-year project. It wasn't a 1-year project. It's not a 2-year project. It's a 10-year one. So he's going to keep trying at it. He's going to keep investing in that group of players and trying to help Derek McInnes or whatever manager it may be across the 10 years to try and bring a league title, a Scottish Cup, a League Cup, European success to Tynecastle, and that's great for our game to see other clubs being as ambitious. And that's what football is all about. Ambition can take you a long way. Of course, talent takes you a long way as well, but it's not all about talent. I think that's what we've seen this season with Celtic, that they've just had the mindset to grind out the results when it's mattered, and that's why they're walking away with a league and Scottish Cup double, and which not many people, including ourselves, would have predicted even a few weeks ago. So that's where the credit lies with Celtic, and what an excellent turnaround it's been from them. But that doesn't sort of get away from the problems at the football club that need to be addressed, and that there will be a time when someone else will take the sort of the reins of Scottish football off them, so to say, because domination in any country's football doesn't last forever. And that's why the Celtic fans need to relish every trophy that is won, because younger fans will may think that it's always like this, but there will be a stage where there is another team that is the most dominant in Scottish football. But at this point, it gets to the point where a Celtic double or a Celtic treble is almost as good as another team winning the one trophy. That is how dominant Celtic have been over the recent seasons. And I think it will continue, but I think it'll slowly fade away, and hopefully we get a more competitive not a more competitive sort of country of football, because it has been very competitive this season. But in terms of maybe Hearts or Rangers or a Motherwell or a Hibs take a wee trophy here and there, because it has still been Celtic dominance for the most part over the last few years. Obviously, credit to St Mirren, they won the League Cup. I know I've kept harping on about how Wilfred Nancy was the manager, and maybe if it was Martin O'Neill, Celtic would have won that game. But take nothing away from Stephen Robinson and St Mirren for getting the job done. Nearly forgot Robinson's name there.
I mean, we've only got a few minutes left, and I presume that if I had asked you in December, if the season finished in December, and I asked you to sum up the season for Celtic, I think you would be saying something completely different from December till now. And even in December, if I say to you, Ethan, Celtic's going to win the game, the game in the last day of the season against Hearts, and beat Neil Lennon's Dunfermline in the Scottish Cup final, they would just laugh at me, because I mean Celtic find it difficult in the league and the Scottish Cup, but I think we always know Celtic in years and years and years, they always manage to find a way of winning.
Yeah, and that's that. And as I think people have said that Celtic is, the fans especially and people involved at the club have said it's a magical football club for the moments they produce and how the moments come to be. And I think you've seen that this season, that despite all the troubles, despite the appointing probably and possibly the worst manager of all time and amongst the most hectic and important point of the season, despite the sort of awful recruitment that was in January especially, and even you could say for large parts of the summer, despite the sort of disruptions between the sort of disagreements between the major supporter groups like the Green Brigade and the Celtic board, despite everything, Celtic are still walking away from this season with a double. And they can, I would say they can count their lucky stars. They deserve their credit, of course, but it easily could have been something else. And that's what I say. Football is about the smallest of margins sometimes, and it was a people will always remember this season for, I think, in the league probably for the decision that goes Celtic's way at Fir Park on the second last game of the season, and in the Scottish Cup that they beat Rangers on penalties, and another day that the decision don't go Celtic's way and they don't win on penalties and they're sitting here with nothing. But you can't always win by a country mile like Celtic have done in previous seasons. And I think the most important thing for the supporters is that they're still winning. Although that doesn't get away from the fact that they still need to strengthen massively in the summer, and they need to get things right, because there's only so many times you can get the recruitment wrong and make a complete mess of almost everything running a football club and still be rewarded with trophies, especially when you've got ambitious clubs trying to chase you down.
Okay, that's us for today. Don't forget you can subscribe to the channel and you can keep up to date with the Scottish Football Zone. We're not finished yet. We'll be back on Monday for the second leg of the Premiership playoffs. Who will be in the Premiership and who will skate in, or who will maybe go into the Championships at Millen or Packet. So that game's very, very tight at the moment. And then we'll be back in the World Cup, so we won't get any rest. I think we'll be off for about maybe about 10 minutes and then back on for the World Cup as well.
Modern day football, Michael, no rest.
Yeah, we never stop.
The players are complaining, but what about us?
Yeah, I know. We're just robots. A lot of people might say something else behind my back, but I'm sticking to robots as well. But yeah, so we never stop. We'll be back on Monday. That is the YouTube channel to subscribe to the Scottish Football Zone, and we'll be back on Monday night for the St Mirren Packet Thistle game. So that's to Ethan for joining us tonight on the Scottish Cup show, and the final score today at Hampden Park was Celtic 3, Dunfermline 1.
Scottish Cup final. Celtic